Pope Francis made a whirlwind visit to the revered Catholic shrine of Fatima in Portugal.
As one of the greatest mysteries of the Church, the third secret of Fatima has always aroused the curiosity of all believers about the truth that has been buried for centuries. It wasn't until the horrifying incident involving Pope John Paul II that the Vatican allowed the secret to be revealed to the public after a long period. However, what was disclosed seems to be just a small aspect of the overall picture. More than just a prophecy, Our Lady of Fatima embodies justice and protection, which is something Pope Francis constantly reminds everyone of. It was hiding for a while, and now it is revealed. When Pope Francis visits Fatima, it will be an extraordinary manifestation in both time and place of the profound Marian piety that unites the Holy Father and his holy predecessor, St. John Paul II. As the successor of Pope John Paul II, Pope Francis also has many special feelings for Our Lady of Fatima. In his very first words as Pope on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Francis told the immense throng, "Tomorrow I wish to go and pray to Our Lady." And so he did, traveling cross-town to the Papal Basilica of St. Mary Major in order to pray before the venerated image of Mary, Salus Populi Romani, protectress of the Roman people. The Holy Father has never stopped going there. He visits St. Mary Major before and after every foreign trip to ask Mary's intercession and express his gratitude upon his return. He has made more than 100 visits, making St. Mary Major the most visited place by any recent pope, aside from the papal residences. Fatima is linked inextricably with Pope John Paul II. After what happened in 1981, John Paul, noting that it took place on the feast of Our Lady of Fatima, credited her with saving his life. One hand fired the bullet, another guided it. After the assassination attempt of May 13, 1981, it appeared evident to His Holiness that it was a motherly hand that guided the bullet's path, enabling the dying Pope to halt at the threshold of death. Because of this, on the occasion of a visit to Rome by the then Bishop of Leiria Fatima, the Pope decided to give him the bullet that had remained in the jeep after the assassination attempt, so that it might be kept in the shrine. At the behest of the bishop, the bullet was later set in the crown of the statue of Our Lady of Fatima. John Paul would then return in the Great Jubilee of the year 2000, his only trip that year besides the biblical lands. On the trip, he beatified Francisco and Jacinta Marto and revealed the third secret of Fatima, which he read as a prophecy related to the assassination attempt. Immediately upon arriving in Fatima on the night of May 12, 2000, John Paul presented a gift in the chapel of the apparitions. He lay before the statue of Our Lady of Fatima, the ring that Cardinal Stefan Wyszynski had given to him upon his election as Pope in 1978. Cardinal Wyszynski was the towering primate of the Church in Poland for 33 years of war with the communist regime, 1948 to 1981. During the conclave of October 1978, Cardinal Wyszynski told his fellow Polish cardinal about the mission before him. At the beginning of my pontificate, Cardinal Wyszynski said to me, "If the Lord has called you, you must take the Church into the third millennium." John Paul revealed in 1994. John Paul's mission was in mortal danger on May 13, 1981. At the same time, Cardinal Wyszynski was dying in Warsaw. When, during the Jubilee year, John Paul presented the ring given to him by Cardinal Wyszynski, it was another act of thanksgiving. He had completed the mission prophesied by the great Polish primate. He survived because of the intercession of Our Lady of Fatima. Pope Francis will be a witness to all that. Pope Francis, peace with sorrow in Fatima. The increasing chaos in society is an obvious truth unfolding before us. Recently, the incident involving Trump has once again stirred the world and raised concerns about the future of humanity. The recitation of the Rosary led by Pope Francis at the shrine of Our Lady of Fatima, for all of us, we consecrate the Church and the world, especially those countries at war. As he prayed the rosary, a profound silence encapsulated the collective voice of millions of souls, all united in the single wish for the world to put aside the horrors of war, every war. There was a long moment of silence in the chapel of the apparitions as he sat before Our Lady. The Pope prayed with sorrow for peace. Our Pope Francis's silent prayer was a sort of anticipation of the fourth mystery of the Rosary recited shortly afterward, which carried the same supplication at its core. For all of you who are watching this, please close your eyes, take a deep breath, then follow these brief, intense lines of prayer together. With childlike hearts, we consecrate to you our lives forever. To you, we consecrate the Church and the world, especially those countries at war. Obtain peace for us. You, Virgin of the Way, open paths where it seems that none exist. The final sentence exudes complete confidence in the intercessory power of the Virgin Mary, surpassing any evil. You who untie knots, loosen the tangle of self-centeredness and the snares of power. You who are never outdone in generosity, fill us with tenderness, fill us with hope, and help us taste the joy that never ends, the joy of the gospel. Amen. The third secret of Fatima is now revealed. The third secret of Fatima was held by the only one of the children, Sister Lucia. She was ordered in 1944 by her bishop to write out the third secret, and did so in holy obedience. In 2000, the Vatican released the text of her statement, along with a commentary by Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who would later be elected Pope 15th. This is Sister Lucia's description of what was revealed. I write in obedience to you, my God, who command me to do so through His Excellency the Bishop of Liria, and through your most holy mother and mine. After the two parts, which I have already explained, at the left of Our Lady and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand. Flashing, it gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire. But they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand. Pointing to the earth with his right hand, the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance." And we saw in an immense light that is God. Something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it, a bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Other bishops, priests, men and women religious, going up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passed through a big city half in ruins and half trembling with halting step, afflicted with pain and sorrow. He prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain, on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was killed by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him. And in the same way, there died one after another the other bishops, priests, men and women religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two arms of the cross, there were two angels each with a crystal aspersorium in his hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God. Then, let's look at the Vatican's interpretation through the Cardinal's reaction. Turning to the content of the third secret, the Cardinal writes that the prophetic vision which was disclosed to the three young children who saw the Virgin Mary at Fatima was a preview of the 20th century. The Cardinal writes, "In the vision, we can recognize the last century as a century of martyrs, a century of suffering and persecution for the Church, a century of world wars and the many local wars which filled the last 50 years and have inflicted unprecedented forms of cruelty. That vision is coupled with Mary's plea for prayer and penance," Cardinal Ratzinger continues, "and taken as a whole, the Fatima message is a strong reminder that the crises of the world must finally be resolved not through armed force but through prayer and reliance on God's grace." Thus, despite its violent imagery and its strong warning tone, the Fatima's message concludes with a note of confidence. My immaculate heart will triumph. To understand the signs of the times, the Cardinal writes, means to accept the urgency of penance, of conversion, of faith. This is the correct response to this moment of history, characterized by the grave perils outlined in the images that follow. The Cardinal's words, which offer at least some comfort, are lent weight by a very interesting revelation, he added. Cardinal Ratzinger discloses that he spoke with Sister Lucia, the sole surviving Fatima seer, about the content of the entire Fatima message. He reports that Sister Lucia said that it appeared ever more clearly to her that the purpose of all the apparitions was to help people to grow more and more in faith, hope, and love. Everything else was intended to lead to this. During the Beatification homily, John Paul II made highly interesting references, which are likely related to it. Above all, he made it clear that the Fatima message is a call to conversion. Moreover, the pontiff confirmed some particular aspects of the three secrets: Jacinta's and Francisco's premature deaths, the 20th century's terrible wars and persecutions, the need to pray to shorten the evils against man, and the attack that he himself suffered in 1981 in the Vatican. He also quoted the Apocalypse, when it speaks of the dragon, which symbolizes evil, and he affirmed that when man puts God to one side, he cannot find happiness but, on the contrary, ends in self-destruction. The confirmation of the second secret of Fatima, which refers to the world wars, was alluded to indirectly by the Pope, when he said, "How many victims there have been in this last century of the second millennium." I am thinking of the horrors of the two great wars and other conflicts in other parts of the world. I am also thinking of the concentration camps and the extermination, the gulags, the ethnic cleansing, the persecutions, terrorism, kidnappings, drugs, attacks on the life of the unborn and against the family. The Holy Father recalled Jacinta's words, who said, referring to Francisco, that the Virgin has come to see us and has said that very soon she will come to take him. Prophesied the tribulations of these times, and the Virgin asked for prayers to shorten these evils. He added that, because of this, I want to thank God for having saved me from death on May 13, 1981. I also express my appreciation to Blessed Jacinta for the sacrifices and prayers for the Pope whom she saw suffer. The truth beyond the purported the third secret of Fatima. The first point to make is that it is not a specific prediction of future events, including the attempt on Pope John II's life. This makes all the more sense if we consider the nature of prophecy in the Bible. The prophets came not to predict the future, but to call the people to return to the timeless faith and belief they already know, but have perhaps fallen away from. Or, in the words of the future Pope, the vision speaks of dangers and how we might be saved from them. He notes that the figure of the angel with the flaming sword is a common image in the book of Revelation, which represents the threat of judgment which looms over the world. But he also notes how the threat is balanced by the splendor of the Mother of God. In the vision, we can recognize the last century as a century of martyrs, a century of suffering and persecution for the Church, a century of world wars and the many local wars which filled the last 50 years and have inflicted unprecedented forms of cruelty, Cardinal Ratzinger writes. However, he concludes, the vision ends with a powerful expression of hope, echoing the Virgin's promise that, "My immaculate heart with triumph." You have an inner compass. So do I. Regardless of what earthly system of dogmas you follow, if any, you and I still have an innate sense of what is right and wrong. It is our choice of whether to follow our compass or go off in some other direction. The third secret tells us that what we do with our compass matters. It matters hugely, in fact. The future of our people and our world depends on our choices. However powerless and futile we consider ourselves to make change, Fatima tells us that there are invisible forces behind visible events, and our contribution to those forces is significant. For all we know, our contribution may be decisive. Sister Lucia said that it appeared ever more clearly to her that the purpose of all the apparitions was to help people to grow more and more in faith, hope, and love. Everything else was intended to lead to this. Pope John Paul II gives us the key. Dollinger and Pope Benedict XVI's Holy See Press Office issued a response that Pope Benedict XVI declares never to have spoken with Professor Dollinger about Fatima, clearly affirming that the remarks attributed to Professor Dollinger on the matter are pure inventions, absolutely untrue, and he confirms decisively that the publication of the third secret of Fatima is complete. And Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone has said one of the reasons the third secret was made public in 2000 was that people were spreading absurd theses about catastrophic events or heresy at the top levels of the Church. Cardinal Bertone, who was personally involved in the publication of the third secret, said he was puzzled that some still think the Vatican is hiding something. In 2006, an Italian journalist wrote a book titled The Fourth Secret of Fatima that laid out a Vatican conspiracy theory, prompting a new round of publicity. In 2007, Cardinal Bertone wrote his own book, The Last Visionary of Fatima, which reiterated the official version of the Fatima messages and secrets, and was based, he said, on long conversations with Carmelite sister Lucia dos Santos, the last of the visionaries to die. In TV appearances, the cardinal strongly denied theories of a Vatican cover-up. Pope Benedict was also personally involved in publishing the third secret. Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, the Vatican's top doctrinal official, presented the text of the secret to the press and wrote a lengthy commentary about it. That news conference on June 26, 2000, is still memorable for Vatican journalists. The stage was set for the disclosure of a text that for decades was thought to be too disturbing to reveal. But instead, Cardinal Ratzinger began by deflating expectations and announcing that there was nothing apocalyptic. No great mystery is revealed, nor is the future unveiled, he said. He went on to give a theological framework to the apparitions and messages of Fatima, insisting that in the Church's tradition, prophecy is not like a film preview, but more like offering signs that can be useful for Christians. Cardinal Ratzinger said that was how to understand the third secret's vision of a bishop in white, who struggles up a hill amid corpses of slain martyrs, and then falls dead after being shot by soldiers. Whether this bishop symbolized Pope John Paul II, who was shot and wounded on May 13, 1981. Father Nicholas Gruner, a Canadian priest who founded the Fatima Crusader magazine, has long maintained that Russia has yet to be consecrated to Mary following the instructions of Our Lady of Fatima. Father Gruner said, "We haven't had the conversion of Russia by any stretch of the imagination, not militarily, not morally. It's the largest abortion capital of the world. There's just no sign of conversion in any sense. That's another issue the Vatican is tired of dealing with." Church officials say Pope John Paul II in 1984 led the world's bishops in the consecration of Russia and the world. The late Sister Lucia, one of the 3 Portuguese children who saw Mary in 1917, and the one who received the instructions for the consecration, had said that it was properly performed. You know, the third secret concerns the infallible definitions of the faith, and that definitions, by their very nature, have to say what the truth is, and therefore, by strict logical implication, what the error is, and that the error is condemned. If a person stubbornly holds on to a condemned error after he has been informed of the infallible truth, then he cannot be saved unless he repents before he dies. And so it is our duty to witness to the truths of our faith and to protect the little ones from errors against the faith by defending the faith in public. That's why the Church anathematizes those errors and those clergy and laity who stubbornly hold on to them. We know what the third secret is because Pope John Paul II has revealed to us what it is. Pope John Paul II warned us in May 2000 about the dangers to the faith in our day by citing in his sermon, which predicted that 1/3 of the stars of heaven would be taken down to earth by the tail of the dragon, and the Pope indicates to us that the danger is now. Catholic commentaries have traditionally interpreted this passage as referring to 1/3 of the clergy as undermining both the Catholic faith and the salvation of souls by working for the devil. And we also know from other reliable sources, including Cardinal Ratzinger, when he said the third secret refers to the dangers threatening the faith and life of the Christian, and therefore the life of the world. We also know it from Father Malachi Martin, as I told above, when Our Lady said, "In Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved." What do you think it means? It means that the dogma of the faith will not be preserved in various or many other parts of the world because the clergy and faithful are not adhering to the solemn definitions. The third secret concerns the undermining of the Catholic faith throughout Europe and possibly throughout much of the world. If the people adhered to the infallible definitions, they would retain the faith. To safeguard your Catholic faith, you need your own efforts to live a good Catholic life and to read solid Catholic material, to avoid bad books, magazines, TV programs, and to avoid also people who undermine your Catholic faith. But you also need grace. To obtain this grace, you must pray, especially the daily rosary. To avoid being confused, do not follow the false shepherds and the heretics who claim to speak to a deeper understanding of the gospel. If they followed the infallible definitions of the dogmas of the faith, the faithful would judge everything according to what is right and what is wrong in the light of the gospel and of the infallible definitions that explain the gospel. They would know if something were of the faith or not, and they would know when the other person speaking was in error, no matter what their position and stature in the church was. And they would be able to determine what is wrong, what is against the faith, because the definitions are infallible. That is, they cannot fail. A pope can fail at times. At times, an ecumenical council can fail, a cardinal, a bishop, a priest, or a layperson can fail, but the solemn definitions of the pope alone or the pope together with an ecumenical council can never fail. This is what Our Lady of Fatima came to warn us about and to tell us what to do, to preserve our own souls and to preserve as many souls of the people around us as we can. And this is what the third secret is about in a few words. And we're on solid ground. The question now is, what can we do about it to save our souls? As I said before, pray the rosary daily and learn the dogmas of the Catholic faith, especially the infallible definitions. What did the secret of Fatima say? Church. And it's time to reveal. You know, the secret of Our Lady has been hidden for a long time because those who hold the secret in their hands keep saying that this is not the time to reveal everything. It was not until 2000 that Pope John Paul II revealed what was hidden inside the sealed envelope about the secret of Fatima. These secrets are said to be related to hell, World Wars I and II, and the persecutions that Christians faced in the 20th century. The first secret, or vision, was of hell. Lucia wrote that the Blessed Virgin showed the children what hell was like, complete with the suffering experienced by the souls who are there. The vision lasted only a second, but the children say that it was almost unbearable. It led to a great trust in the promise of Mary to lead her devotees to Christ, to save souls from this great eternal suffering. In the vision revealing the second secret, the Blessed Virgin shows the young children a vision in which they learn that World War I, which is going on during the time of the visions, will end. However, another world war will ensue under the papacy of Pope Pius XIII, who reigned from 1922 until 1939, unless people stop offending God and Russia is converted. The Virgin asked that Russia be consecrated to her Immaculate Heart. And you know what a coincidence happened? It was World War II that began in 1939, just as Our Lady had predicted. And that leads us to the third secret, the one that gets all the attention. Sister Lucia didn't want to share the third secret but was asked to write it down by the Bishop of Leiria, and this document remained sealed until 2000. The third secret of Fatima was finally disclosed in 2000, on the day of the beatification of Francisco and Jacinta Marto. Lucia wrote, "The third part of the secret revealed at the Cova da Iria Fatima on 13th July 1917. I write in obedience to you, my God, who command me to do so through His Excellency the Bishop of Leiria, and through your most holy mother and mine." After the two parts which I have already explained, at the left of Our Lady and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand. Flashing, it gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire, but they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand. Pointing to the earth with his right hand, the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance." And we saw in an immense light that is God. Something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it. A bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Other bishops, priests, men and women religious going up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks, as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passed through a big city half in ruins and half trembling with halting step. Afflicted with pain and sorrow, he prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain, on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was killed by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him, and in the same way there died one after another, the other, bishops, priests, men and women religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two arms of the cross, there were two angels each with a crystal aspersorium in his hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs, and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God. The little shepherds lived God's passion for humanity. And so they were chosen and constituted as prophets of God's love, and offered and proposed by Him to the world as children shepherds after His own heart. Our Lady of Fatima urgently desired for all of faithful to pray daily for the salvation of poor sinners, and for the whole world. That message from our Mother Mary is a challenge, no matter where you are in your own personal prayer life, to go deeper, to pray often, and with greater fervor. Some of us may not pray all that often except when in great need. Now it is time to dust off that rosary that has been sitting on the shelf since it was received at confirmation. Others of us may have a deep devotion to the rosary already, in which case the message of Fatima calls us to approach our prayer life with a new ardor. This new ardor would look differently for each individual, but may include things like adopting new devotional practices, recommitting ourselves to attentiveness during times of prayer, or perhaps even increasing the frequency of times dedicated to the Lord and Our Lady in prayer. But remember this: prophecy is not scriptures. Just trust the Lord and we'll be good.